Danica Hartman stood at the kitchen window, gazing out at the Vancouver skyline, bathed in the soft orange glow of the setting sun. From here, the world looked calm, perfect even. Their sleek modern loft, located on the 18th floor of a luxury building downtown, offered a view that stretched to the horizon, the glittering waters of the Pacific, a constant backdrop to their life. But despite the beautiful exterior, Danica's thoughts were a tangled web of guilt, longing, and confusion. At 36, Danica was everything she had ever hoped to be: successful, admired, respected. As an architect, she had been behind some of the city's most iconic buildings, and her career was flourishing. Her husband, Adam, 2 years older, was equally successful. A high-powered environmental lawyer whose work often took him to the farthest corners of the globe. Together, they were the perfect couple, wealthy, accomplished, and adored by their peers. But lately, that perfection had begun to feel like a prison. Adam was always busy, always traveling, and when he was home, he was emotionally distant. They had tried to start a family, but after 2 years of trying, the hope had faded, leaving a void between them that neither seemed able to fill. Danica's phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Simon. "Can't wait to see you tonight." Her heart skipped a beat, a mix of excitement and dread. Simon wasn't just a friend of Adam's. He had become something more. It had started innocently enough. Simon, a venture capitalist with a sharp mind and a charming demeanor, had been a frequent guest at their home, often joining them for dinner or drinks. He was part of their social circle, and Adam trusted him implicitly. But as Adam's work took him away more frequently, Danica found herself spending more time with Simon. At first, it had been just casual conversations, a shared glass of wine after a group dinner. But soon, their encounters became more frequent, more intimate. The first time they kissed, Danica had pulled away, horrified at herself. She had always prided herself on being loyal, on being the kind of woman who could be trusted. But Simon had filled a space in her life that Adam no longer seemed interested in. Danica had told herself it was a one-time mistake, that it would never happen again. But the pull between them was too strong. What began as stolen moments quickly spiraled into a full-blown affair. Simon was attentive in ways Adam hadn't been in years. He made her feel seen, wanted, alive. But now, as she stared at his text message, the weight of her actions pressed heavily on her chest. "Danica," Adam's voice called from the living room, pulling her from her thoughts. She quickly locked her phone and turned to face him. Adam stood in the doorway, his briefcase in hand, his tie slightly askew. He looked tired, as he often did these days, the demands of his career clearly taking their toll. "Are you ready for tonight?" he asked, glancing at his watch. "Everyone should be here soon." Danica forced a smile, her stomach knotting with anxiety. She had invited some of Adam's closest friends over for drinks, an attempt to distract herself from the growing tension in her marriage, and perhaps, on some level, to keep up appearances. Simon would be there, of course. He was always there. "I'm ready," she replied, smoothing down her dress. "Just finishing up in the kitchen." Adam nodded, then paused, studying her for a moment. "You've seemed distant lately," he said, his tone soft, but probing. "Is everything okay?" Her heart raced. He knew, or at least, he suspected. She could see it in his eyes, the flicker of doubt, the unspoken question hanging in the air between them. "I'm fine," she said quickly, turning back to the stove to stir the simmering pot of soup. "Just work stress, you know?" Adam didn't respond right away. He walked over to the counter and poured himself a glass of whiskey, his eyes still on her. "You sure?" he asked, his voice low. Danica felt the guilt rise in her throat, but she swallowed it down. "Yeah," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm sure." The party begins. The guests arrived in pairs, laughter and conversation filling the loft as the evening wore on. Simon arrived last, slipping in with his usual easy confidence, a bottle of wine in hand. Danica felt the familiar jolt in her chest as their eyes met across the room. He gave her a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of the secret they shared. Throughout the evening, Adam was the perfect host, charming, engaging, always with a story to tell. But Danica could feel his eyes on her, watching her every move. As the night wore on, she found herself gravitating toward Simon. Their conversations quiet, their touches fleeting, but charged with electricity. Adam noticed, he had been noticing for weeks now, the way Danica's attention seemed to shift when Simon was around. The way she laughed at his jokes just a little too hard. The way her hand lingered on his arm for just a moment too long. Adam's stomach twisted with unease, but he pushed the thought aside. He didn't want to believe it. Danica wouldn't betray him. She couldn't. But as the evening wore on, Adam's doubt grew. He watched as Danica and Simon moved to the corner of the room, their heads close together, their laughter quiet but intimate. Adam's heart pounded in his chest. Was he imagining it? Or was there something more going on? The confrontation. The night ended with the usual goodbyes, the guests filing out one by one. Simon was the last to leave, lingering by the door as Danica handed him his coat. Their fingers brushed briefly, and Adam saw it, an unspoken connection that confirmed his worst fears. After Simon left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. Danica busied herself in the kitchen, cleaning up the glasses and dishes, but she could feel Adam's eyes on her. She knew this moment was coming. She had known it for weeks. Danica. Adam's voice was quiet, but there was a steeliness to it that sent a chill down her spine. She turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. Yes? Adam set his glass down on the counter, his eyes locked on hers. What's going on between you and Simon? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Danica felt her throat tighten, her mind racing for a way out. But there was no escaping this. Adam knew. He had seen enough to put the pieces together. Danica's voice faltered. She couldn't lie, not anymore. The guilt was too much, the weight of her betrayal crushing her from the inside out. Adam, I'm so sorry. Adam's face twisted in pain, the confirmation of his worst fears, written in Danica's trembling voice. He took a step back, his hands gripping the edge of the counter for support. How long? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Danica wiped away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. A few months. Adam closed his eyes, as if trying to shut out the reality of what she had just told him. The woman he had loved, the woman he had built his life with, had betrayed him. And not just once. It had been ongoing, right under his nose. Why? He asked, his voice cracking. Why would you do this to us? Danica shook her head, her own emotions threatening to overwhelm her. I don't know, she whispered. I felt so lost. You were always gone, always busy, and I didn't know how to reach you anymore. Adam let out a bitter laugh. So you reached out to Simon instead. Danica winced at the harshness of his words, but she knew she deserved it. She had made choices, terrible, selfish choices, and now she had to face the consequences. Aftermath. The days that followed were a blur of cold silences, tearful conversations, and sleepless nights. Adam moved into the guest room, unable to bear being near her. Danica tried to explain, to make him understand that it hadn't been about Simon, or even about sex. It had been about the emptiness inside her, the growing distance between them, that she hadn't known how to bridge. But Adam wasn't ready to hear it. He wasn't sure if he ever would be. They went to therapy, at first, both of them unsure of whether they were trying to save their marriage or simply understand where it had all gone wrong. The therapist told them that trust could be rebuilt, but it would take time, and it would never be the same. For Adam, that was the hardest part. He had always believed that their marriage was built on a solid foundation of trust. But now that foundation had been shattered. Every time he looked at Danica, all he could see was the betrayal, the lies, the stolen moments with Simon. For Danica, the road to redemption felt impossibly long. She hated herself for what she had done, hated the person she had become, but she also knew that if there was any chance of saving their marriage, She had to confront the reasons why she had strayed in the first place. She had to dig deep into her own pain, her own fears, and find a way to heal. A quiet goodbye. Months passed, and though the wounds were still raw, there was a quiet understanding between them now. Adam had moved back into their bedroom, but things were different. Their conversations were cautious, their touches hesitant. They were both trying, but neither was sure if trying would be enough. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of their loft, watching the sun set over the city, Adam spoke the words that had been weighing on his heart for months. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I used to," he said, his voice quiet, "but I want to believe that we can find a way forward. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think I'm willing to try." Danica nodded, her heart heavy with both hope and uncertainty. "I want to try too," she said, her voice barely a whisper. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, Danica felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. Conclusion. And so, the story doesn't end with a perfect resolution, but with the promise of healing and growth. Adam and Danica's journey is far from over, but they have taken the first step toward rebuilding the trust that was broken. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and share this story with anyone who might find themselves on a similar journey.